Hello, Courtney with Ginger Knots here, and I messed up. I recorded this video already and unfortunately used yarn that was just too similar to the background color and it was hard to see. That's not what you want in a beginner video, so I have re-recorded how to make this scarf, or these scarves that I have on now. This is a very simple tutorial to show you this beginner level scarf. I do have a pattern PDF for it as well if you'd like that down the road. This today though, you should be able to follow the instructions and make this entire scarf. To get started on this pattern, you'll need a crochet hook that is 11.5 millimeter or pea-sized. So you want it to be larger than what the yarn would call for. I am using Hue and Me by Lion Brand for this project. That is what my examples are made with. And you can see it makes it really squishy. It's got good stitch definition. So this is the final result. As you can see, I have used the wrong color with wrong background in other occasions too. So hopefully this one is much better than the last. So you'll start with the slip knot. And go ahead and throw that bad boy on your hook. I like to leave at least like a 6-inch-ish tail because I like to have a little extra to weave in at the end. Now I'm holding my yarn like this. You can hold your yarn however makes sense for you, but this helps me keep my tension. This is a project that you have to be really cognizant of tension. Even though it's a beginner level project, you want to make sure that you keep that same tensile strength, I would say, here on this line. Otherwise, your loops will be all different sizes, and that's not what we want. You're going to start by chaining a really long chain. I believe mine is around 200. I just chained to about 8 feet. So however long you want the scarf, that's how long you're going to chain. Now, for those of you who might be newer to chaining, I'll go ahead and slow down. You can make sure that when you insert your hook, you're using the full part of your crochet hook and not keeping it down here because your chains will be too tight. So make sure you throw that all the way in there. You're going to yarn over the nose of your hook, and I like to turn it down. That gives me the ability to create some space there to slide it through easily. So again, if you are new, make sure you practice chaining because this is a really easy way to goof the first part of the pattern. Is if this is too tight, then your scarf will curve when the stitches that go into it are bigger. So nice and loose chains, just make sure you're working the body of that hook. So for this project, I'm going to stop here in terms of my chains. I'm not going to chain any further, but you'll want to go for the full length of the scarf. This is just a little square for this tutorial. So once you have your full length of the chain that you'll want, you're going to find the second chain from your hook. So this is the one that's on there, there's 1 and there's 2. So I'm going to work into just the one side here. Now if you're doing your crochet, your chains correctly, these will all look identical. So if it's really hard for you to tell which stitch is where, that means that your chain wasn't done the same way every time, and therefore you might want to start again and get comfortable with chaining so that they all look the same the whole time. That helped me a lot when I was starting out. So I'm going to go into this first space. First thing I'm going to do is yarn over, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that stitch, and my nose is down. I'm going to go under my nose, so that's a yarn over, and I'm going to pull that back through and up. Now make sure you're pulling up on your stitches, otherwise again you could have a situation where you're too tight and it'll be very frustrating. So we've got some nice loosey stitches, or if you're not sure, just pull them onto that thick part of your hook and then they'll all be the same size. And then I'm going to grab just that first one and I'm going to pull it through the next 2 on that hook and again return to the floofy part of my stitch. So that is a half double crochet slip stitch. So that is the stitch we're going to use the entire rest of the time. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into there, grab my yarn and pull it back through. Now I've got 3 loops on there, just the first one, pull through both, and make sure that you give yourself this nice relaxed loop here. If it's too tall, it'll be weird. If it's too tight, you'll hate my guts and you'll start using my name as a swear. Don't do that. set yourself up for success and don't crochet tight. This is supposed to be relaxing. I had a friend that I taught to crochet who, she unfortunately was a little stressed, so she was a little tight and her hands went numb while she was trying to crochet. So we don't want that. We want this to be a nice, relaxing, fun activity. So I'm going to, even continuing to pull out of your ball of yarn so that you don't have to pull with your hand here. So I am going to do half double crochet slip stitches all the way across. Now it is a good time, I'll show you how I'm going to use stitch markers to mark my edges, just so that you don't have wavy edges. I've been crocheting for almost 10 years and I even accidentally do it sometimes, so it's very, very easy to goof on the ends. So I got all the way back to where I started my slip stitch, so that is where I'm stopping for this little guy right here. It doesn't really look like that same texture right yet. We're not really seeing that. It's the next couple of rows that are going to let us really see that knit look texture, the brioche look. So here's my little stitch marker. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy stitch markers. I have used spare bits of yarn for years, and even now, having stitch markers, because I lose them all the time, I still use spare bits of yarn. But I'm going to throw this just on this last stitch here so that I know where it is. I don't get too lost in the weeds. I'm only going to throw it on one because I don't want it to, no, lies. I'm going to throw it on both. And I'm going to clip it. So now you finished your row, you've got your stitch marker on, go ahead and chain up one, turn your work, and I'm going to do the stitch under both loops here. Now for this pattern, you really don't necessarily do that. You're working under the back loop only for most of it, but just to keep a nice tight, clean edge that doesn't get stretched out over time, that's why I'm going to work under both. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook under both loops, or bunny ears. Some people get mad when I call it bunny ears. Don't care. Going to keep doing it. So I've done that. I got my 3 lines here, and I'm going to pull it through both. Now working in along the rest of the way, you might have 200 stitches to go. You can see that you're going to work in the back loop only. I'll finish my thought before I move on. You're going to work in the back loop only. However, it's kind of hard to tell where that is. It kind of looks like these are your bunny ears, but they are not. These are the stitches that you want to remain in front so that it gives you that knit look. We're going to turn and look at the top, and there is our back loop only. So there's that guy right there. That's what we're going to work into all the way across so that these 2 stitches here can have their moment in the sun. They're going to stay in the front. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into the back loop only, yarn on over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the 2 on the hook. So you can already see that little V gets to be out front. I'm going to work that stitch all the way down, making sure to stay nice and loose. I know I sound like a broken record here, but it's very important to keep your stitch tension consistent on a project like this, and not too tight. Now I've taught many crochet classes over the years. You don't have to hold your yarn the way that I do. There are several ways to hold your yarn. Some people do it like this. Some people just go around their pinky. Lots of ways to do it. This is just the way that I've done it over the years. So there is really not a lot of right and wrong ways to do things in crochet. It's whatever works best for you. So now I've reached the end of my row, and I realize here that I should have used a stitch marker because this part can be difficult to see. So you can see at the end here I have these little V's. I'm going to work into both of those little lines at the end. If you work just one, it's going to pull on the other side and it will get really stretched out. So that's why we want to work under both. So yarn over, work under both, and pull up a loop. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to pull that a little bit tight, and I'm going to turn my work. Now in the last row, I used my stitch marker a little early, and it's on the bottom. That's fine, because I still know where my last stitch is, but I'm going to show you what I should do on this end. You can tell I don't often actually use stitch markers. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to insert into both loops. So this is the front loop, back loop, and then the extra guy in the front. So I'm going to go into both, pull up a loop, and go through those two. Now I'm going to place the stitch marker so it tells me where my end is. So I'm going to put that under both loops. So I know when I come back to this edge, that is exactly where I'm going to put my last stitch. So let's work again all along the row. I'm going to show you what I did wrong with my stitch markers. Maybe that's the lesson on how not to use a stitch marker. Instead of placing it in that row, I should have waited like I just did correctly. This is the correct way. But you'll see how it's at least still marking the edge for me. So I'm working my half double crochet slip stitches all the way along, and I need more yarn. Almost to the edge here. And you can see that that last stitch marker is just a row down. That's okay, because I can still tell that this is where my end is. So I know that I need to work a half double crochet slip stitch into both loops here. So I can go rescue my misplaced stitch marker now and put it in the right spot. And really, all you're going to do is continue to repeat that. If you don't need the stitch marker, that's fantastic. I'm going to pull this a little tight, turn my work, and insert into both loops. And then now I'll place my stitch marker. So there's the cadence of when you should place your stitch marker. Throw that on there. And work back along. So now you can really start to see that texture develop. And the beauty of this stitch is because, one, it's repetitive, but two, it works it so that that texture is on both sides. There is no real wrong or right side on this, so that's why it works great for a scarf or a hat or any other way that, or a blanket, however you want to use this stitch, because it looks great on both sides. So here I am almost at the end. I can see my stitch marker is properly placed to tell me exactly where it is supposed to be. So I'm working under both loops there. I could pull that out so it doesn't get in my way. And we are done with that. So that is how you do the brioche crochet scarf. I do sell the written pattern on my website and on Etsy. If you don't want to come back and watch the video, you can get that there and make all of the scarves in the world. This project takes me roughly 2 hours to complete a full-sized scarf. You can do as many repeats as you want. I've done some that are this wide, and I have some that are even wider. So it's really friendly to what you feel is best. If I made my husband one, I might make it a little thinner because that's how he likes his scarves. But it should end up with this really squishy, beautiful texture, and I hope you love it. Happy crocheting.